The ship landed on Vela Prime, just as the three suns began to set. Tejo stood at the exit door and looked out at the alien world. The sky was purple and orange. The buildings were tall and made of something that looked like glass but shined like diamonds. Everything was beautiful. Everything was strange. He was the first human to ever serve in the Velan Royal Guard. This was supposed to be an honor. But Tejo knew the truth. He was here because Earth needed allies, and the Velans needed proof that humans could be useful. He was not a guest. He was a test. A Velan officer met him at the landing pad. The officer was tall, almost 8 feet, with skin that looked like pale blue crystal. His eyes had no pupils, just swirling silver light. He looked down at Tejo, the way someone might look at a small insect. "You are the human," the officer said. It was not a question. "I am," Tejo replied. He kept his voice calm and his back straight. The officer made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Smaller than I expected. Follow me. Try to keep up." Try to keep up, Tejo followed. He did not complain about the pace, even though the Velan's legs were twice as long as his. He had been a soldier on Earth for 15 years. He had fought in 3 wars. He had been shot twice, stabbed once, and buried under rubble for 6 hours. Walking fast was not going to break him. The palace was even more impressive than the city. It rose into the sky like a frozen waterfall, all curves and light. Guards stood at every entrance. They were all Velans, all armed with weapons that hummed with energy. They all stared at Tejo as he passed. He heard whispers, some in the Velan language, some in the common galactic tongue that everyone used for trade. "That is the human? So small, so soft. Why would they send something so weak?" Tejo kept walking. He had heard worse. The officer brought him to a large hall where the royal family waited. King Dowan sat on a throne made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. He was old for a Velan, nearly 400 years, but he still looked strong. His face was hard and his eyes were cold. Queen Sora sat beside him. She was quieter, her expression impossible to read. She watched Tejo the way a scientist might watch an experiment. And then there was Princess Nari. She was young, maybe 60 years old, which meant she was barely an adult by Velan standards. Her crystal skin was lighter than the others, almost white, and her eyes were a deep violet color. She leaned forward in her seat, studying Tejo with obvious curiosity. "So this is the human," King Dowan said. His voice echoed in the great hall. "Earth sends us a bodyguard, and this is what they choose." The king stood up and walked toward Tejo. He circled him slowly, like a predator examining prey. "Tell me, human, what can you do? Can you survive in the vacuum of space? Can you heal from wounds in hours? Can you lift 1,000 pounds with one hand?" "No, your majesty," Tejo said. "Then what use are you?" Tejo met the king's eyes. It was considered disrespectful in Velan culture, but he did it anyway. "I am hard to kill, your majesty, and I do not give up." The king laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Hard to kill? Your species lives for what, 80 years? 100 if you are lucky? My guards have been training longer than your entire civilization has existed. You are soft. You are fragile. You are temporary." 42-3. "Another use dest 40. Perhaps," Tejo said. "But I am here. And I will do my duty." The king waved his hand dismissively. "Put him with the secondary guards. He can watch the princess during the day. Keep him away from anything important." And so began Tejo's life in the palace. The other guards treated him like a joke. They gave him the worst shifts. They spoke about him as if he could not hear. Captain Minho, the head of the royal guard, was not cruel but was not friendly either. He simply ignored Tejo most of the time, as if the human was too small to notice. But Princess Nari was different. She started visiting the guard quarters during Tejo's shifts. At first, she just watched him from a distance. Then she began asking questions. "Is it true that your planet tries to kill you?" she asked one evening. Tejo was standing outside her study, his hands behind his back. "Your Highness? Earth, I have been reading about it. Her violet eyes were bright with interest. Your planet has storms that destroy cities, animals that hunt your kind, diseases that have killed millions. Even your own star gives you sickness if you stand under it too long. That is all true, Tejo said. Then how are you still alive? How did your species survive? Tejo thought about the question. It was something he had never really considered before. On Earth, survival was just what you did. You did not think about it. You just kept going. We adapt, he finally said. We learn. We fight. And when we cannot do any of those things, we simply refuse to die. Princess Nari stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. That is the most interesting thing anyone has said to me in years. After that, she visited him often. She asked about Earth, about human history, about the wars and the plagues and the disasters. She seemed fascinated by how much humans had suffered and how they kept going anyway. Tejo answered her questions honestly. He told her about the time his unit was trapped behind enemy lines for 2 weeks, with no food and no hope of rescue. He told her about the earthquake that destroyed his hometown when he was a child, and how the survivors rebuilt it in 3 years. He told her about human medicine, how they cut open their own bodies to fix what was broken inside. That is horrifying, Princess Nari said after he described surgery. It works, Tejo replied. She laughed at that. It was a nice sound, but not everyone was pleased with the princess's interest in the human. Tejo noticed the looks from certain nobles. He noticed the whispers that stopped when he entered rooms. He noticed the way Lord Hugh, a tall Valen with dark crystal skin and colder eyes than the king, watched him with barely hidden hatred. Something was wrong in the palace. Tejo could feel it. He had survived too many dangerous places not to recognize the signs, the tension, the secrets, the feeling that something bad was coming. He reported his concerns to Captain Minho. The captain listened politely and then dismissed him. You are new here, Minho said. You do not understand our politics. Lord Hyuk is ambitious, yes, but he is loyal to the crown. You are seeing threats that do not exist. Tejo did not argue, but he did not believe the captain either. That night, he saw Lord Hyuk meeting with strangers in the lower levels of the palace. They wore no uniforms. They carried hidden weapons. They spoke in voices too quiet for Tejo to hear. He could not prove anything. He had no evidence. He was just a human, a temporary creature in a world of immortals. But he knew what he had seen, and he knew that whatever was coming, he would be ready. He had made a promise to protect the princess, and Tejo always kept his promises. The Galactic Summit was held on a massive space station that floated between 3 star systems. It was neutral ground, a place where all the great powers of the galaxy could meet without fear of attack. Representatives from 100 worlds gathered there to talk about trade and treaties and the future of known space. The Valan royal family arrived on the 3rd day. Their ship was the largest and most beautiful in the docking bay. King Dawen walked at the front of the group, his head high and his shoulders back. Queen Sora walked beside him, graceful and silent. Princess Nari followed close behind, her violet eyes taking in everything around her. And at the back of the group, almost invisible, walked Tejo. He was not part of the main security detail. Captain Minho had made that very clear. Tejo was here only because protocol required the princess to have a guard at all times. And all the real guards were busy with more important duties. He was given the job no one else wanted. Tejo did not mind. He had a better view from the back. He could see everything. The crowd, the other delegations, the shadows. The station was full of aliens of every kind. There were the tall, insect-like Kreth who communicated through clicking sounds. There were the small, furry Molan, who were famous traders. There were the massive Gronak, stone-skinned warriors who rarely left their homeworld. And there were many others that Tejo did not recognize. But one group caught his attention. They stood near the edge of the main hall, dressed in simple clothes that did not match any delegation. They were Korath, a species known for mercenary work. They were not supposed to be here. The summit had strict rules about weapons and warriors. Tejo watched them. They watched the Velen royal family, He tried to get closer to Captain Minho, but the crowd was too thick. He tried to use his communication device, but something was jamming the signal. He was alone. With no way to warn anyone, the ceremony began. King Dawen gave a speech about unity and cooperation. The other leaders applauded politely. Queen Sora stood beside her husband, her face calm and proud. Princess Nari looked bored, though she tried to hide it. Then the procession started. It was a tradition at the summit. Each royal family would walk through the main hall, while the other delegations watched. It was supposed to show trust and openness. No weapons were allowed. No guards were permitted within 10 feet of the royals. Teho was pushed back with the other secondary staff. He could barely see the princess through the crowd. His heart was beating faster now. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The Korath were moving. Not all of them. Just one. A female with gray skin and black eyes. She pushed through the crowd with practiced ease. No one noticed her. No one except Teho. She had something in her hand. Something that glowed with a faint blue light. A plasma blade. Illegal on the station. Deadly to any species. Teho did not think. He did not calculate the odds or consider the consequences. He simply moved. He pushed through the crowd like a man possessed. People shouted and cursed at him, but he did not care. He had to reach the princess. He had to stop what was about to happen. The assassin was faster. She broke through the last line of spectators and ran toward Princess Nari. The blade extended, a shaft of blue fire that hummed with deadly energy. The princess turned. Her violet eyes went wide with shock. She was frozen. Unable to move. Unable to scream. The blade came down, and Teho threw himself in front of it. The pain was unlike anything he had ever felt. The plasma burned through his chest like it was made of paper. He felt his ribs crack. He felt something vital inside him tear. He felt the heat spreading through his body, cooking him from the inside. He hit the ground hard. Blood was everywhere. His blood. More blood than he knew he had. The world became very quiet. He could see the ceiling of the station above him. The lights were pretty. He had never noticed how pretty lights could be. Someone was screaming. The princess. Maybe, or maybe someone else. It was hard to tell. Guards rushed past him. The assassin was being tackled. Her blade knocked away. There was shouting and chaos, and the sound of weapons being drawn. But Teho could not move. He could not speak. He could only lie there and feel the life draining out of him. Captain Minho appeared above him. The Valan's silver eyes looked down at the human with something that might have been surprise. Or maybe respect. It was hard to tell with Valans. Minho pressed 2 fingers to Teho's neck. He waited. Then he shook his head. The human is dead, he announced. He gave his life for the princess. Dead. The word echoed in Teho's fading mind. Dead. He was dead. This was what death felt like. Cold, and dark, and peaceful. He had done his duty. He had kept his promise. The princess was safe. That was enough. Queen Sora knelt beside him. Her crystal face showed no emotion. But her voice was soft when she spoke. Remove him with full honors. He earned that much. King Dawen stood nearby, his expression complicated. He had spent months dismissing the human as weak and useless. Now that human lay dead at his feet, having done what none of the Velen guards could do, Princess Nari was crying. She pushed through the guards and fell to her knees beside Teho's body. Tears ran down her crystal cheeks, leaving trails of light on her skin. Why? She whispered. Why did you do that? You stupid human. You brave, stupid human. Teho could not answer. He was beyond answering. The darkness was taking him, pulling him down into nothing. But then something strange happened. Deep inside his dying body, something sparked. A chemical reaction, buried in his DNA, passed down through 1,000,000 years of evolution on a planet that never stopped trying to kill his species. Adrenaline flooded his system. His heart, stopped for almost a minute, suddenly contracted. Once, twice, 3 times. His hand twitched. Captain Minho had already turned away, giving orders for the body to be transported. The Queen was speaking with other leaders, trying to control the chaos. The king was demanding answers about how an assassin had gotten so close. But Princess Nari saw. She was still kneeling beside Teho, still holding his hand, still crying. She felt his fingers move. She looked down at his face, and Teho opened his eyes. For a moment, no one else noticed. The hall was still full of noise and motion. Guards were securing the area. Diplomats were being evacuated. The assassin was being dragged away. Then Princess Nari screamed. Not a scream of fear. A scream of shock. Of disbelief. Of something that was almost hope. "He is alive," she shouted. "The human is alive." Everyone stopped. Every eye in the hall turned to the floor where Teho lay, and they all saw the same impossible thing. The human with the hole burned through his chest was looking back at them. He coughed. Blood came up. But not as much as before. His body was already working to save itself, doing things that no Velen body could do. "Is the princess safe?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper, but in the sudden silence, everyone heard it. Princess Nari laughed through her tears. Yes, I am safe. Because of you." Teho smiled. It was a weak smile, but it was real. "Good," he said. "That is good." Then he passed out, but he did not die. Against all logic, against all known biology, against everything the Velens understood about life and death, the human did not die. And in that moment, everything the galaxy believed about humanity began to change. The medical bay on the station was the most advanced in the galaxy. Doctors from 12 different species worked there, using technology that could regrow limbs and repair damage that would kill most creatures. They had seen everything. They had healed everything. They had never seen anything like Teho. The human lay on a bed in the center of the room, surrounded by machines and monitors and very confused doctors. His chest was a ruin. The plasma blade had burned a hole the size of a fist through his body. It had destroyed one lung, damaged his heart, and melted 3 of his ribs. By every medical standard, he should be dead. His heart had stopped for 3 minutes. His blood loss was catastrophic. The heat from the plasma should have cooked his internal organs, but he was not dead. He was breathing. Slowly, painfully, but breathing. His remaining lung was working overtime, pulling in air and pushing it out. His heart, somehow still functioning despite the damage, was beating in an irregular but determined rhythm. The lead doctor, a Velan named Junho, stared at his instruments as if they were lying to him. "This is impossible," he said for the 10th time. The damage to his cardiovascular system alone should have killed him instantly. And even if he survived that, the trauma shock should have finished him. And even if he survived that, the blood loss should have ended it. "There is no explanation." "There is," said a new voice. Everyone turned. A human woman walked into the medical bay, her expression calm despite the chaos around her. She was tall for a human, with black hair pulled back in a practical style, and eyes that missed nothing. "I am Yuna," she said. "I am the human ambassador stationed on Vela Prime. I came as soon as I heard what happened." King Dowan stepped forward. He had been standing in the corner, watching the doctors work, his face troubled. "Can you explain this? Can you explain how this human is still alive?" Yuna walked to Teho's bed. She looked down at him with something like pride in her eyes. "I can try." She turned to face the assembled Velens. The king and queen were there. Princess Nari stood nearby, her eyes red from crying but her gaze fixed on Teho. Captain Minho and several other high-ranking guards filled the rest of the room. "What do you know about Earth?" Yuna asked. "It is a small planet," King Dowan said impatiently. "In a minor star system. Your species is young and short-lived." "What does this have to do with anything?" "Everything." Yuna clasped her hands behind her back. "Earth is what we call a death world. Category 7, one of the most hostile environments in the known galaxy, where intelligent life has still managed to evolve. She began to pace slowly, her voice taking on the tone of a teacher explaining something important. Our planet has extreme weather, hurricanes that can destroy entire cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, floods, droughts, fires, ice ages. Every few million years, something wipes out most of the life on our world. And yet, life always comes back. We always come back. Dr. Junho was listening intently now. But how? Your bodies are so fragile. Are they? Yuna smiled. Let me tell you about human biology. We have a chemical in our bodies called adrenaline. When we are in danger, this chemical floods our system. It makes us faster, stronger, and almost immune to pain. Soldiers have been known to keep fighting with injuries that should have killed them, simply because their bodies refused to accept that they were dying. She gestured to Taeho. But that is not all. Human cells have an incredible ability to repair themselves. We can recover from injuries that would permanently disable other species. We can survive diseases that have wiped out entire alien populations. We can go without food for weeks, without water for days, without sleep for longer than you would believe possible. But his heart stopped, Captain Minho said. I checked myself. There was no pulse. Human hearts can restart, Yuna said simply. It happens more often than you might think. Our bodies have backup systems, fail-safes built into our biology by millions of years of evolution on a planet that was always trying to kill us. When everything else fails, something deep inside us refuses to give up. There was silence in the room. Princess Nari stepped forward. So humans cannot die? Of course we can die, Yuna said gently. We are mortal, just like any other species, but we are very, very hard to kill. And more importantly, we never stop trying to live. Dr. Junho looked at his instruments again. His vital signs are stabilizing. It should not be possible, but they are. His body is healing itself. How long until he recovers? King Dawan asked. With this level of damage, months, at least. Maybe a year before he can walk again. If he ever fully recovers at all. Yuna shook her head. You do not know humans, doctor. He will be on his feet much sooner than that. She was right. 3 days later, Taeho opened his eyes. He was in a different room now, a private chamber in the palace's medical wing. The walls were soft, white, and gentle light filtered in from hidden sources. It was peaceful. It was quiet. It took him a moment to remember what had happened. The summit. The assassin. The blade. The pain. The princess. He tried to sit up. His body screamed in protest, but he forced it to obey. He had felt worse. Maybe. It was hard to remember. The door opened. Princess Nari stood there, her violet eyes wide. You are awake, she breathed. I am, Taeho said. His voice was rough, but it was his. How long? 3 days. She rushed to his side. The doctors said you would sleep for weeks. They said your body needed time to repair itself. My body can sleep later. Taeho swung his legs off the bed. His chest was wrapped in bandages and strange alien technology that hummed softly against his skin. I have a job to do. You nearly died. You were dead. Your heart was not beating. But it is beating now. Taeho looked at her. And as long as it is beating, I will protect you. That was my promise. Princess Nari stared at him. Then, slowly, she began to cry again. You humans, she said, are absolutely insane. Taeho smiled. I have been told that before. Over the next 3 days, he forced himself to recover faster than any of the doctors believed possible. He walked when they said he should be bedridden. He exercised when they said he should be resting. He pushed his body harder than it had ever been pushed, and his body responded. By the 6th day, he was standing on his own. By the 7th, he was walking the halls of the palace. By the 8th, he reported for duty. Captain Minho met him at the guard station. The Villan looked at Taeho with an expression that was very different from the dismissive attitude of before. You should be dead, Minho said. I get that a lot. How are you even standing? I have seen the damage reports. A Velan warrior would need 6 months in a healing pod to recover from such wounds. Teho shrugged, then winced at the pain. Humans are stubborn. Minho studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he held out his hand. I was wrong about you, he said. I thought you were weak because you were different. But true strength is not about how hard you can hit, or how long you can live. It is about never giving up, and you, human, are the strongest person I have ever met. Teho took his hand. It was the first time a Velan had ever shown him respect. Word of what happened spread quickly through the palace. The human who took a plasma blade to the chest and lived. The human who was declared dead and opened his eyes 3 minutes later. The human who was walking again in less than a week. Some called it a miracle. Others called it impossible. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humans were not what they seemed, and Teho was only the beginning. The investigation into the assassination attempt was swift and brutal. Within hours of returning to Vela Prime, Captain Minho and his guards had arrested over 20 suspects. Within days, they had traced the plot back to its source. Lord Hugh stood in chains before the throne. The great hall was packed with nobles and advisors, all watching in silence as the evidence was presented. The conspiracy ran deep. Lord Hyuk had been planning for years, building a network of allies who shared his belief that the Velan Empire was growing weak, that the alliance with Earth was a mistake, that the royal family had lost their way. The assassin at the summit was just the beginning. If Princess Nari had died, chaos would have followed. And in that chaos, Hyuk would have made his move. King Dawen's face was like stone as he listened to the accusations. When the evidence was finished, he stood. Do you deny these charges? He asked. Lord Hyuk raised his head. Even in chains, he showed no fear. I deny nothing. The princess is a fool. She spends her time talking to humans instead of preparing for war. And you, my king, have forgotten what made our empire great. We are Velans. We are conquerors. We should not be making treaties with lesser species. He turned his head and looked directly at Teho, who stood among the guards near the throne. Especially not with animals like that one. Teho said nothing. He had heard worse. King Dawen's voice was cold. Lord Hyuk, for the crime of high treason and attempted murder of the heir to the throne, you are sentenced to death. The execution will take place at dawn. Hyuk laughed. Kill me then. But know this. I am not alone. There are others who share my vision. Others who will not rest until the old ways are restored. This is not the end, my king. This is only the beginning. He was taken away. But his words hung in the air like poison. In the days that followed, the palace changed. The guards who had once mocked Teho now nodded when they saw him. Some even bowed. He was no longer the weak human who did not belong. He was the man who had taken a killing blow for their princess and refused to die. Captain Minho began inviting him to training sessions. Not as a student, but as an equal. The Velan warriors watched with fascination as Teho demonstrated human combat techniques. Boxing, wrestling, martial arts that had been developed over thousands of years on Earth. Your fighting style is so different, Minho observed after a sparring match. You do not try to overpower your opponent. You wait. You adapt. You find weaknesses. Humans are not the strongest species, Teho said. We never have been, but we survived by being smarter, faster, and more flexible than anything that tried to eat us. Eat you? Our planet is full of predators. Things with teeth and claws and venom. Things much bigger and stronger than us. But we are still here. And most of those predators are not. Minho considered this. Perhaps there is more to your species than we understood. Princess Nari visited Teho often during his continued recovery. She would sit with him in the gardens and ask questions about Earth and humanity. He answered them all. Glad to have someone who was genuinely interested. Tell me about human families, she said one afternoon. The sky above them was soft purple, and the alien flowers around them released a sweet scent. What do you want to know? Do humans love the way Velans do? Teho thought about the question. I believe so. We love deeply. We form bonds that last our entire lives. Some would say we love too much. It makes us vulnerable, but also strong, Nari said softly. You took that blade for me. You did not even hesitate. Why? Because you were in danger, and I had promised to protect you, but you could have died. You did die. For a few minutes. Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know? Teho looked at her. In the soft light, with her violet eyes and her pale crystal skin, she looked almost human. Almost familiar. On Earth, he said, we have a saying. There is no greater love than to lay down your life for a friend. I do not know if we are friends, Princess, but I know you are someone worth protecting. That was enough for me. Nari was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. Her crystal fingers were cool against his skin. We are friends, she said. I think we have been for some time. 2 weeks after Lord Hyuk's execution, King Dawan summoned Teho to the throne room. It was a private audience. Only the king, queen, princess, and Captain Minho were present. Teho walked in alone. Unsure of what to expect, King Dawan stood as Teho entered. The gesture was significant. A Velan king did not stand for anyone beneath his station. Teho of Earth, the king said. I owe you an apology. The words hung in the air. Teho had not expected them. I judged you by your appearance. Dawan continued. I looked at your small body and your short lifespan and saw weakness. I was wrong. True strength is not measured in muscle or years. It is measured in courage, in determination, in the willingness to sacrifice everything for what you believe in. He stepped down from the throne and walked toward Teho. You saved my daughter's life. You took a blow that would have killed any Velan warrior. And then you did the impossible. You came back. You refused to die. The king stopped in front of Teho. They were almost the same height now, with Dawan bending slightly. I am offering you a position, he said. Not as a secondary guard. Not as a token human in my palace. I am offering you the position of the princess's sworn protector. You will be granted all the rights and honors of a Velan knight. You will be recognized as one of us. Teho felt something tighten in his chest. It was not pain from his injuries. It was something else. Pride. Maybe. Or gratitude. I accept, he said. I will protect the princess with my life. Whatever remains of it. Queen Sora spoke for the first time. Let us hope you do not need to prove that again too soon. But in the shadows of the palace, others were listening. Lord Hyuk was dead. But his words had been true. He was not alone. There were other nobles who shared his vision, other plotters who believed the alliance with Earth was a mistake. They had failed once. They would not fail again. New plans were being made. New alliances were being formed. If one assassin could not kill a human, then they would send many. If stealth did not work, they would use force. The human had become a symbol, a sign that the old ways were dying. And some would do anything to bring those old ways back. War was coming to the palace. And this time, there would be no place to hide. Teho did not know what was coming. But he could feel it. The same way he had felt the danger at the summit. Something was building. Something was waiting. He had been given a second chance at life. He did not intend to waste it. Whatever came next, he would be ready. For the princess. For his new family. For the stubborn, relentless, never-give-up spirit that made humans what they were. Let them come, he thought. Let them try. They would learn what humans were made of. The attack came at midnight. Teho was asleep in his quarters when the first explosion shook the palace. He was on his feet and moving before his eyes were fully open, grabbing his weapons and running toward the princess's chambers. The halls were chaos. Guards rushed in every direction. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Outside the windows, ships were descending from the sky, landing on the palace grounds. This was not an assassination. This was an invasion. Captain Minho's voice crackled through the communication system. All guards to defensive positions. The palace is under attack. Multiple breach points. The enemy is inside the walls. Teho did not stop to listen. He had only one mission: protect the princess. He reached her chambers and found her already awake, dressed in simple clothes with her hair pulled back. She was not panicking. Her violet eyes were calm and focused. "What is happening?" she asked. "A coup. We need to move. Now." He took her hand and led her through the back passages, the secret routes that Captain Minho had shown him during their training sessions. The sounds of fighting echoed through the palace. Energy weapons fired. Voices shouted. Somewhere, something large collapsed. They reached a junction and stopped. Ahead, footsteps were approaching. Many footsteps. "This way," Teho whispered, pulling Nari down a side corridor. They moved through the darkness, keeping close to the walls. Twice they had to hide as enemy soldiers passed by. The attackers were a mix of species: Korath mercenaries, Velen traders in unmarked armor, and others that Teho did not recognize. There were hundreds of them. "They want the throne room," Nari said quietly. "If they take it, they can claim the palace." "My father, is King Dawan alive?" "I do not know." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed the fear down. They changed direction, heading toward the heart of the palace. Twice they encountered small groups of enemies, and twice Teho dealt with them quickly and quietly. His human combat training was not elegant like Velan fighting. It was brutal and efficient, designed to end fights as fast as possible. When they reached the throne room corridor, they found Captain Minho holding the doors. He was alone. A dozen enemy bodies lay around him, but more were coming. His crystal armor was cracked and scorched. Purple blood ran down his arm. He was holding a massive energy shield in one hand and a curved blade in the other. "Captain," Teho called. Minho turned. His silver eyes widened when he saw the princess. "You should not be here. Take her to the safe room." "The safe room is compromised," Teho said. "I saw soldiers heading that way." "Where is the king?" "Inside, wounded. I am the only one left defending this position." Minho swung his blade, cutting down another attacker. "More are coming. Many more. I cannot hold them forever." Teho looked at Nari. "Get inside. Lock the doors. I will stay with the captain." "No." Nari grabbed his arm. "You are still injured. You are not fully healed. If you stay out here, then I stay out here." Teho gently removed her hand. "This is what I am for, princess. This is why I am here. Now go. Please." Ended. Their eyes met. Something passed between them that neither had words for. Then Nari nodded and slipped through the throne room doors. They closed behind her with a heavy sound. Teho picked up a fallen weapon and stood beside Minho. "You should have gone with her," the captain said. "Someone needs to watch your back." Minho almost smiled. "Stubborn human. I have been called worse." The first wave hit them hard. 10 soldiers charged down the corridor, weapons blazing. Teho and Minho fought side by side, covering each other's weaknesses. Minho was stronger and could take more damage. Teho was faster and could see openings that the Velen missed. They held the line. The second wave was larger. 20 soldiers. Teho took a hit to the shoulder but kept fighting. Minho's shield cracked but did not break. They held the line. The third wave was 30 soldiers, led by a massive Korath commander with 4 arms and a plasma cannon. Minho went down, his legs shattered by a blast. Teho stood over him, fighting with everything he had. He was hit again. And again. His body screamed at him to stop, to rest, to give up. But he did not listen. He never listened. The Korath commander laughed. "One human against my army? You are already dead. You just do not know it yet." "I know exactly what I am," Teho said. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds. His vision was blurry. His legs wanted to collapse, but he stayed standing. I am the thing that will not fall. I am the reason your ancestors feared the dark. I am human. He attacked. What happened next would be told in stories for centuries. Tejo fought like nothing the Velans had ever seen. He used everything: weapons, fists, teeth, anything he could reach. He took wounds that should have killed him 3 times over and kept coming. Every time they knocked him down, he got back up. Every time they thought he was finished, he found 1 more ounce of strength. The Korath commander hit him with a blast that threw him against the wall. Tejo's chest wound from the summit reopened. Blood poured down his body. He stood up anyway. The commander hit him again. Tejo fell to his knees. He stood up anyway. What are you? The commander screamed. Why will you not die? Tejo smiled. His teeth were red with blood. I told you, I am human. He threw his last weapon. The blade caught the commander in the throat. The massive alien fell. And then, at last, Tejo fell too. He hit the ground hard. The world was fading. Everything was cold and distant. He had done it. He had held the line. Reinforcements would come. The princess was safe. He could rest now. He could finally rest. But then he heard her voice. Tejo, no. Princess Nari was kneeling beside him. When had she come out? The doors were open. Guards were flooding in. Finally, overwhelming the remaining enemies. It was over. They had won. You fool, Nari cried. You brave, wonderful fool. Is the king safe? Tejo whispered. Yes, everyone is safe. Because of you. Tejo smiled. It hurt to smile, but he did it anyway. Then I kept my promise. You always keep your promises. The medical teams arrived. They worked frantically, using every technology available to save him. It was close. Very close. But Tejo held on. He refused to die. Again, 3 months later, he stood in the throne room once more. But this time, everything was different. The palace had been rebuilt. The conspirators had been captured and punished. Peace had returned to Vela Prime. And the story of the human who would not fall had spread across the galaxy. Princess Nari stood beside her father, but she was no longer just a princess. The attempted coup had accelerated things. She was being crowned queen, and her father was stepping down to advise her. New Queen Nari stood before her people, tall and proud in her ceremonial robes. And beside her, wearing the armor of the royal guard with the insignia of sworn protector, stood Tejo. Foreign dignitaries from a dozen worlds had come to witness the coronation. Many of them looked at Tejo with curiosity, some with fear. One, a representative from a species that had been hostile to humanity, approached after the ceremony. Why do you keep a human so close? He asked the new queen. Queen Nari smiled. It was the same smile she had worn when Tejo first explained what it meant to be human. Because when everything else fails, she said, humans do not. She looked at Tejo. He looked back at her. There was something in that look that went beyond friendship, beyond duty. It was the look of 2 people who had faced death together and come out the other side. Humans are not the strongest species, Nari continued. They are not the fastest or the longest lived. But they have something no other species has. They refuse to give up. They refuse to stop fighting. They refuse to die, even when the universe itself demands it. She turned back to the diplomat. That is why I keep a human close. Because no matter what comes, I know he will stand beside me. And that is worth more than all the strength in the galaxy. Tejo said nothing. He did not need to. His presence said everything. The human who took a killing blow for a princess. The human who came back from death. The human who held off an army with nothing but courage and the refusal to fall. He was just one man from a small planet in a minor star system, but he had shown the galaxy something it had never understood before. Humans were not weak because they were fragile. They were strong because they had to be. They were survivors. Fighters, the children of a death world who had learned to spit in the face of oblivion and keep walking. And now the galaxy knew. When they asked about Tejo in the years that followed, Queen Nari always told the same story. The story of the night she almost died and the human who saved her. The story of the man who refused to give up. The story of why you should never, ever underestimate a human. Because they will get back up. They will keep fighting. They will not fall. Not now. Not ever. Not until the very last star burns out and the universe goes dark. And maybe not even then.